Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for the latest in our webinar series on improving chrome roll operations with precision rolls. We hope everybody continues to stay safe and sane, and as we all work through the COVID-19 pandemic together, it will have an end, I'm sure. But again, we appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon. This webinar is intended to be a general overview of some things that we would ask you to consider along with your Chrome roll provider, Chrome roll service provider, to make sure that you're optimizing and improving operations around Chrome rolls. So we'll go ahead and get started. A couple of housekeeping items. There is a chat function within the webinar. If you have a question, please feel free to use that. At the end of the webinar, I will try to unmute everybody as well, so that if you have a question, you can ask it verbally. Generally, we try to keep folks muted throughout the webinar just because of background noise and that kind of thing. So we'll go ahead and get started. Precision chrome rolls, what matters? Pre-grinds and grinds, and I want to emphasize that, and we'll emphasize it a few times throughout the webinar. The pre-grind on chrome rolls when you're getting a roll chromed is very critical because of the concentricity of the substrate to the bearing, making sure that roundness and shape is proper before you spend the time, money, and effort to put a high quality chrome surface on it. And at the end of the day, it reduces variation in your process, regardless of what that might be. Secondly, maintaining the surface and optical properties you need. Chrome rolls are generally in very high quality products. We understand that. We have a number of markets that we work with to make very, very high quality products. So again, world-class product quality. And then you need to be looking at value-driven results. At the end of the day, we need to be working with you, or you need to be working with us, or whoever your supplier is for chrome roll services, on reducing variation in your process. At the end of the day, that's what drives economic results, as you all know. So reducing variation, whether it be in your product quality, whether it be in material savings, or improving roll life. So we're just going to cover these topics in general. We're also going to talk about some options out there that are chrome replacements, particularly in light of some of the environmental issues around chroming, and in some of the wear issues and some of the inherent issues with chrome on the substrate itself and how it's got microfractures in it and those sorts of things. So reducing variation, where does it start? It starts with roll roundness. Roll roundness matters. You can see an improperly ground roll on the left-hand side and a precision ground roll on the right-hand side. And although the scale may seem awfully slight, you're still putting a slight cam in your process. So if you're coating with a chrome roll application, if you're making a very high demand optical plastic product with chrome rolls, if you're whatever product that you are applying, or whatever product you are producing, the roundness is very critical to eliminate, again, variation in the machine direction as you produce that product. Roll shape matters. So not only the roundness, but what does the shape of the roll look like from drive side to tending side? We talk about uniform material thickness. Again, it could be a sheet of plastic that's being produced. It could be a coating that is being added to a substrate. It could be a number of different applications, but in all those applications, a common thread is there's some sort of material that's either being produced or applied where this chrome roll resides. So the roundness is important to reduce the machine direction variation. Obviously, the shape is very important to reduce cross direction variation. And it just results in improved end product, I should say, construction, right? Reduce defects by reducing the deviation material thickness, and again, just providing a more consistent product, which leads to consistent strength in your product, and consistent convertibility of your product, and consistent performance of your product. So again, roll roundness, roll shape. And this is just an example, and this is actually a real life example. It could be applied to, a film being produced. Again, it could be applied to a coating being applied. But additional material due to poor shape causes a poor product profile. And in many cases with our partners, we see where they're controlling their entire process to compensate for poor profile of some sort, whether again it be plastic thickness, coating application thickness, something, or any other product that is being produced via a chrome roll, or any roll for that matter. By being able to reduce those streaks, and in many cases it's proper shape of the roll. Again, shape being how is the crown correct? Is the grind correct from front to back, or tending side to drive side? Are there peaks and valleys in there? Again, critical to reduce variation. We also want to talk about roll concentricity. This really matters. Concentricity must be attained in pre-grind and in subsequent grinds to ensure chrome substrate it stays concentric with your bearings. On a pre-grind, meaning you've got an old chrome surface on it, or some other surface that needs to be chromed eventually, the pre-grind is critical, because if you're not concentric from that bearing seat to the face of the roll for the entire shape of the roll, then when you apply the substrate, in this case we're talking about chrome, then the substrate is not consistent, and it's not concentric with the bearing. So as it runs in your process, you have varying substrate coming through your process. That can cause fracturing issues, it can cause heat issues, it can cause a number of issues, going back to even the material thickness issues that we've talked about. So non-concentric substrate can lead to premature failure, and certainly inconsistencies in the surface. And what we find is that this is one of the geometric tolerances that is often overlooked. You can't achieve this with grinding and bearings. You can't achieve shape and roundness really with that grinding and bearings. Also, certainly can't do it grinding in place, which is grinding and bearings plus all the other influences of the machinery when you're grinding in place. So we just ask you to keep that in mind, how critical it is that from the bearing seat up through the face of the roll, that concentricity, roundness, and shape are critical. It allows for consistent chrome application, and it allows for a consistency in production throughout the life of that roll. And again, if you're grinding in bearings, you can't achieve these things. The concentricity is not possible, which is the foundation for all this. The shape is not attainable, and the roundness is not attainable. So again, consider very seriously the quality of the pre-grind and how that leads to a very consistent application of chrome, or perhaps a similar substrate, and the ability, because of that consistent application, to regrind that surface as often as possible before it has to be replaced. Chroming a roll surface is not an inexpensive proposition. We understand why it's critical in many applications, but again, because of that, let's make sure that that face is concentric, so that you get the right application. You can get as many grinds as necessary, or as possible, I should say, to optimize and maximize that investment. Talk about surface finish. Pre-grind, applying the chrome, grinding the correct concentricity, shape, and roundness after the chrome is applied, all critical because of the need to reduce variation in your process, any process, regardless, again, of what it is. And then in many cases with chrome, applications, the finish is critical. I would call it hypercritical. So ensure that the grinding provider and the service provider you're working with is capable of doing the things that you need to have done with that surface finish. You can see here just an example of, this is an example of what Precision Roll Grinders does. Our typical tolerance is somewhere around 5 microns, but here are the examples of where we go down to a micron tolerance. And you can see the surface finishes there too in RA. So those applications where you need a perfect, in quotes, finish, make sure you're working with a provider that can actually do that. And there's some examples of some of the markets where that's necessary: coating, plastics, some of the battery separator markets. 10% of the work that Precision Roll Grinders does has a tolerance less than 2.5 microns. So be sure to be working with a provider that understands the geometric tolerances that we've talked about, is capable of achieving those for you, so that when your substrate is applied, when your chrome is applied, it's applied properly. You get the reduction of variation in your process, you get the life out of the substrate, and you also get a substrate where you can acquire the finishes that you need to produce the product that you're looking to produce at the quality levels that make you more competitive than those around you that are trying to do the same thing. This is important too. Work with your service provider to really identify the cost of not doing all this properly, right? And this is just an example, and we do this often. We do this all the time with our partners. And it depends on, again, the application that you have. It depends on the process you have. It depends on the equipment you have. But there's always a value stream. As a matter of fact, there's generally multiple value streams, whether it be extending roll life, extending the number of grinds you get, which is roll life, from having to reapply the substrate, reducing variability in the quality of the product that you're producing, reducing variability in the material that you're using to produce that product. Those all are economic drivers. And at the end of the day, we would encourage you to really keep in mind to push your provider to show that economic benefit. Again, this is an investment. All too often, roll services are viewed as a line item cost for your operation. It really ought to be viewed as an investment. In many cases, you're spending the kind of money that you would otherwise capitalize something for. I know I've worked for companies where, gosh, if it was over $5,000 of something that you needed to fill out a capital request, because you could work that with the IRS. So again, this is an investment, and an investment is measured by the return on that said investment. So we would encourage you to really look at this as a return on investment. What in your process is improving? It's not just, it is a necessary cost, but if you view it as an investment, then you're driving to really partner with your service provider to find the economic benefit. And again, this is just an example. We customize these with our partners to really fit, again, the machinery, the process, and the equipment and the product that they are producing. So I want to talk a little bit about the mechanical side of things too with your roll service provider. Obviously, we've talked about the grinding portion of it and how critical that is, not only prior to adding a chrome substrate, but afterwards with concentricity, roundness, and shape and finish, surface finish. But there's a whole set of mechanical issues around that roll too that really need to be paid attention to. So roll life and startup. Roll excellence is not just grinding excellence and finishing excellence, it's also mechanical excellence. So this is just a list of things to keep in mind. Precision maintenance is more than just precision grinding. So, depending on the application, some rolls have internals, whether they be vacuum boxes, hydraulic internals, those heating internals. cooling internals. Those things have to be maintained with the same kind of precision mindset that the roll is ground and finished to. So there's just some examples of really taking a look at bearings, making sure your bearing seats are spot on, right? Again, we don't want to be putting a cam into your process because there's an issue with a bearing seat which leads to premature bearing failure, or that we're not concentric from the bearing seat to the face of the roll. All these things. So again, encourage you to work with a provider and with a partner that is looking at all these aspects with you. Another example, temperature control. In a lot of chromed applications, temperature control is critical, right? So unfortunately, I've seen in my history, let's really pay attention to everything we're doing on the outside of that roll and not ignore, but not give the proper attention to what's inside that roll. So work with, again, your partner in roll services, particularly in Chrome applications, which are expensive, which are generally high quality applications, to make sure that entire roll, inside and out, is right. Because again, the object is reduced variation, which drives real economic value for you. Roll life and startup. This again is a real life example. This is an infographic that we use quite a lot with our partners, where the wear of a roll is a function of the deformation in that roll. And we've talked about how important it is to be as close to perfect prior to adding a substrate, and how that can lead to longer run life, reduced variability, and that kind of thing. Here's how it leads to longer run life. It's kind of the washboard effect on a road, right? As the washboard gets worse, the wear of the road gets worse exponentially. So it's not a linear relationship. And there's a huge difference between starting at 2/10,000ths, let's say, or even more, 40 microns, as opposed to a 1/10,000th. In this case, this is actual data on 2/10,000ths versus 8/10,000ths. And I've heard many partners say, well, we're splitting hairs, aren't we? Literally, because that's the kind of the resolution we're talking about. No, we're not. You can see when you start at this difference, a competition tolerance at 8/10,000ths is already 12 months of wear, compared to if you start the roundness of that roll at 2/10,000ths. And again, roundness with concentricity and shape along with it, right? So we just want you to be aware of this. This is real. And you can, and the axis on the left-hand side doesn't necessarily have to be 2/10,000ths or 8/10,000ths. It could be 40 microns again versus 80 microns, or something along those lines. So this is a very big deal, particularly with the effort and the cost of pulling rolls, putting spares back in, that kind of thing. Keep this in mind and talk to your service providers about this. I want to take a quick minute and talk about chrome alternatives. Precision roll grinders have had a long history in partnership with Praxair Surface Technologies, and there are really exciting new chrome alternatives out there that alleviate some of the, alleviate the concerns over the environmental issues of chrome. They're environmental and REACH compliant, very equivalent performance to chrome, even to the point where it's got an appearance that looks very, very much like chrome. Better economics than typical spray-on covers. No internal micro cracks. Those of you familiar with chrome understand the very nature of chrome, that at times there's multiple layers of chrome that have to be applied so that the micro cracks overlap and don't cause an issue. This alleviates that. There are no internal micro cracks in this. It's actually got the particle size to replicate chrome, and really not even replicate it with, it can be better than chrome in many applications. So common challenges of wear abrasion, wet corrosion, galling, that you see with chrome can really be improved with some of these newer cover applications. It does have history in aerospace, chemical, food, heavy equipment, metals, oil and gas, a number of and other related industries, paper, plastics, power generation, textile. So again, if this is of interest to you, please reach out to us at Precision Roll Grinders. We've got the roll understanding and roll technology, grinding and servicing technology to go along beautifully with these types of applications. So again, longer life, environmental and REACH compliant, equivalent or better performance on the surface finish and properties, and still capable of providing the kind of concentricity, roundness, and shape that we've been talking about. So something else certainly to keep in mind going forward. And we'll wrap up with this. We try to keep these around 20 minutes and then allow for some questions. So PRG, Precision Roll Grinders, has a promise to provide real economic value. And we would encourage you, if you're dealing with us or if you're dealing with whomever, to really push your partner in roll services to say, okay, how are we driving real economic value? We can help troubleshoot even in this virtual world through video, through phone conversations, through data. We have an application engineering group, which is relatively new to Precision Roll Grinders, and their job is to work with our account managers to identify those variation gaps in your process with you, to design an experiment with you that all parties are in agreement with, to collect that data, and we really put Six Sigma rigor behind the collection, evaluation of that data, and to ensure that we're reducing variation through roll services to the point where you can generate a predictive equation on what to expect time over time, given a certain set of parameters. And at the end of the day, it's really got to drive real economic value. So again, keep this in mind. This is looking at it as an investment as opposed to a cost in roll services. And we're huge proponents of that, obviously. Some case studies out there where, reducing variation can be big numbers. Just wanted to put this in here for you to show you that, depending on the size of your operation, depending on how expensive the substrate is that you're working with, or the material is that you're working with, but we're talking about operational light, medium, and heavy industry, right? It doesn't take long to spool up 6 figures of savings or loss. On the other hand, if you've got variation in your process that's causing it. So this is, we've got 4 facilities here in North America, and we'd encourage you to reach out to us via these numbers, via the local account manager you have. You can look at this through the website. We keep all our webinars on the website and have industry-specific information on the website. So we'd encourage you, even if it's just questions, technical questions, we want to help. So I hope that's a nice overview of some of the things that we would ask you to keep in mind when working with your chrome roll applications. And at this time, we'll open it up. Let me make sure that I unmute everybody. Okay, if you want to ask a question verbally, you should have the ability to do that now. Or again, you can put something in the chat if that works better for you as well. Here is an initial question. Can any of our 4 facilities handle chrome roll applications? The answer is yes. We have we don't chrome plate ourselves, obviously, but we do have partners, trusted partners in each of our facilities to do that. We have the capability of handling that in all 4 of our facilities. There are some specific capabilities we have in Allentown that we'd be happy to talk to you about. But again, certainly capable of doing that. The second question, triple layer chrome. Yeah, we've actually worked with some of our partners on doing that. Again, we mentioned it earlier because of the micro cracking that's inherent in chrome. We have worked with some to have to apply multiple layers of chrome to get the kind of surface finish that they need to produce the product in the high quality demands of the products that they're producing. And mirror optical properties, yes, we've done work, you know, in those industries where, well, I'll describe it this way because we're very conscious about our non-disclosure agreements. When a customer comes in with magnifying glasses and spends a few hours looking over the surface of a roll to see if there are any pits that can be found, any scratches that can be found, any of that, the precision roll grinders does have the capability to provide those kind of finishes. Are there any other questions at this time? Okay, we're almost at a half an hour. We appreciate the few questions we did have. We certainly appreciate your time. And we would encourage you to keep these items in mind. This webinar will be available generally within a couple days on our website. We would ask you to share it with those that you think might get something out of it. We'd ask you to explore the other webinars that are on the website because many of these items are consistent regardless of what type of role position you're talking about or what kind of industry you're involved in. And again, encourage you to reach out to us. We want to be technical experts on your behalf. This is what we do. We're specialists in roles. We're not. You're the specialist in your process. So let's partner to make the most out of that relationship. Again, thank you for your time. Reach out to us and take a look around our website for other good technical information. Everybody have a great day, and we hope to talk to you soon.